Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. 6:04. Thank you for joining, everybody. We may have a few stragglers coming in, but that'll be just fine. And so good evening. This is our second event in Underwood Conservation District's Winter Workshop Series. My name is Tova Tillinghast, and I'm the Underwood Conservation District Director, and thank you all for taking time to be with us here. Let's see. Hopefully everyone sees my screen, no problem. Tonight we'll be learning about some of the exciting work that we're doing and having, which we've also recently completed here at Underwood Conservation District. And I have slides describing some of our projects going on throughout Skamania and Western Klickitat counties, as well as some of the programs and services that are available to you and your neighbors. This is part of our Winter Workshop series, as I mentioned, and at last month's workshop, we learned about the tree of heaven and its potential companion, the spotted lanternfly. This is an emerging and important issue that really all residents in the gorge need to know about. And if you missed this workshop, do not fret. All of our workshops, including last year's, have been recorded and are available to view on our website under News and Events. We also have the slides assembled into a PDF slide deck for future reference. And if you want to go back and learn about any of our past topics at a later date, please go for it. If you know someone who should have attended those workshops or even tonight's workshops and couldn't make it, please send them to our website. In the next week or so, we'll have tonight's recording posted on that website as well within the next week. Our next events are in February, and there have been a couple of date changes, so I want to make sure everybody knows about that. We'll be co-sponsoring a workshop with the local chapter of the Washington Farm Forestry Association, all about biochar in the backyard. And that's on February 9th. It's going to be online, just like this tonight's event. And attendees will learn how to transform a common burn pile into biochar, which can be used to improve the health of your soil while simultaneously fixing carbon that would otherwise end up in the atmosphere. Kelpie Wilson of Wilson Biochar will join us to share biochar science and the practical approaches to biochar creation and application. So I'm sure we'll learn a lot from her on February 9th. Also in February, we have a very special pre-release gorge screening of the film Elemental, a film about wildfires in the Northwest. This will be held at the Bingen Theater Thursday, February 16th at 6:30 p.m. We'll post in the chat where you can get tickets. I don't think they're quite ready for sale quite yet, but soon, any day now, you should be able to purchase your ticket for this event. Elemental has been lauded as a visually stunning film, providing a roadmap for badly needed changes that will benefit thousands of people, particularly in fire-prone communities. The film has been selected for over 30 film festivals thus far and will be premiering nationwide in April. After the Bingen screening in February, filmmaker Trip Jennings and special guests from UCD, Washington Department of Natural Resources, and Mount Adams Resource Stewards will be available for a Q&A discussion on how people can prepare for wildfires here in the Columbia Gorge. So this is sure to be a thought-provoking event, a very special pre-screening, and we hope you will join us on February 16th for that. And to stay up to date on all of our recent news and updates, you can always sign up for our e-newsletter, also through our website. We have our native plant sale going on still through the month of February. And of course, our annual Tree Fest event will be in March when those plant orders are ready for pickup. That's on March 18th. So hopefully one way or the other, we will be seeing you again here in the next few months. With that, I will turn to Jan Thomas here at UCD, and she will be tonight's moderator. And she has a few logistics to describe as we get started.
Thank you, Tova. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to just be mostly in the background here, helping run the Zoom. So I'm the one here to tell you to please keep yourself on mute and to put any of the questions you might have in the chat box. If you have a burning question during the presentation, just, clarifying question, feel free to raise your hand. We can just take care of that If it's kind of a larger discussion, we'd ask that you just put it in the chat box or wait until the end of the presentation. We're a small enough group that it would be nice to hear from you directly at the end of the presentation if you have questions or comments, but the chat box is always an option for you as well. If you're having any trouble with your computer audio, you can call in instead. That's an option, or just put something in the chat and I can kind of help troubleshoot with you offline off to the side here. And then I think the last thing is just we are going to do a couple of polls tonight, just one kind of as we get started and then one at the end. Those should just pop up for you on your screen. And if you don't mind just taking a minute to answer those, it kind of helps us get a sense of who's here and how the webinar went for you. So I think that is everything. I'll turn it back to Tova now.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we are finding that this online approach to our workshops works pretty well since the onset of COVID. Of course, we miss seeing everyone face to face, but hopefully you're enjoying some benefits of being at home. Hopefully you're able to sit back and relax and enjoy a cup of tea or your favorite beverage while you listen tonight. We're also excited to see increased geographic reach with these events, since really anyone can attend from any location with internet. So there are some advantages to this online forum. Thanks for being patient with us as we conduct ourselves through Zoom. And we'd love to get to know more about you in the audience. So we do have a short poll that Jan will launch, and we'd love to hear about where you're located, where you live, or you may have land that you own or manage. So please go ahead and participate in the poll. Yeah, just a minute, quickly.
It's just a couple more seconds here. We've got almost everybody on there.
Let Jan describe the results when ready.
Discovered an anomaly in Zoom where only one host can see any polls or poll results at a time. So I'll read them out loud so Tova can also know what we can see. So it looks like we've got most folks there. I'll go ahead and end the poll and share the results with you all. So looks like we're about 30% Clicktack County and almost 60% Skamania County. One other that might be our Josh there. Hi, Josh. Landowner or manager, everyone that answered is a landowner or land manager. And a real range of size of properties, pretty well split over all of the ranges, 0 to 5, 5 to 40, 40 to 100, and more than 100. So good range there. And then most folks saying they are very familiar with us, and just one that's kind of heard of us but not gotten involved yet. Thank you all for your time on that. Stop sharing that now.
All right, thank you. All right, so we'll just start with a little bit of background about conservation districts, and really Chapter 8908 of the Revised Code of Washington is the enabling statute for conservation district work in Washington, and it was adopted by the state legislature in 1939. Bear in mind, this was in the wake of the Dust Bowl, and so really conservation districts and the Natural Resource Conservation Service were established because of the Dust Bowl and all of the changes that were happening to the landscape. So we we as a country united and decided that something needed to be done, and local conservation districts were established to help address local natural resource concerns. Here in this area, Underwood Conservation District was established in 1940 in Underwood, Washington. So that's where our name comes from. Since then, we've grown and annexed many, many more areas of the district, and I'll talk about our geographic scope in a few minutes. But UCD is governed by a local volunteer board of 5 supervisors. In the early days, the district was made up of really our board of supervisors only. But in the last few decades, we've been able to add staff and add capacity to what we do. And with us tonight is our board chair, Barbara Bailey, who will get us started. She has generously been involved in UCD's work for many years, serving on the board now for the last 6 years, and she'll be explaining a little bit more about our mission and our long-range planning process. Welcome, Barbara. Oh, you're muted, Barbara.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Tova. Yeah, when I hear about the pre-staff era of the conservation districts, I'm very grateful to be in this more modern era, but it's an honor to be part of the good work that UCD does. And I'm excited to share a bit about what we set out to accomplish with our long-range planning process recently. Every 5 years, we make a long-range work plan, and that guides us in our annual planning. And both plans guide us in prioritizing the use of our limited time and resources and focus us on our mission. So as you see here, the mission is to engage landowners and land users throughout Skamania and West Klickitat counties in the voluntary conservation, enhancement, stewardship, and sustainable use of natural resources. What's special about the long-range planning process is that we engage the community in identifying their natural resources conservation priorities and needs. This year, we did that in part through an online survey. Jen's going to tell you more about what we learned through that survey shortly. But the online survey allowed us to get input from more households than we have been able to touch in the past through community meetings. We also surveyed and interviewed a number of our public and private partners to learn how they view UCD, our strengths and weaknesses, and our impact on the community's critical natural resources issues. 2 of our newest board members took the initiative to work directly with Tova to structure a series of meetings for the board and staff, as well as interested public, to build on the survey input and on our own experience working with the community. We wanted to build a common base of understanding, particularly between the newer board members and the more experienced board members, and between the board and the staff, and of course, UCD's director, Tova, who is the linchpin of it all. We work closely with landowners and farmers and other land users, including tribal communities, home gardeners, and also with the schools, the cities and counties, and other stakeholders. The process helped us to look at our work through these different lenses. With that foundation, we allowed ourselves to dream about how we might make UCD's presence here more central to the life of the community through initiatives, large and small. And we recognize that our impact is on a voiceless community as well, of wildlife, native plants and insects, microbial life that build healthy soils. In short, all who depend on our good stewardship of the planet. I think we all came away from the process inspired and ready to work with you and with a range of partners, and to find new resources to make our community a better place for us all. Planning activities are just one element of the work done by UCD's Volunteer Board of Supervisors. As Tova mentioned, the full board is comprised of 5 members. Not these 5 now, but it's a great picture. 3 of them are elected and 2 are appointed by the Washington Conservation Commission. We welcome the public at our meetings, which are held monthly on the 3rd Tuesday of the month. And I wanted to make sure you know that one of the elected positions, which is currently held by Chris Shadell, is up for election in 2023. We have 3-year terms for our terms of office. We encourage you to request a ballot, which you can do on our website, www.ucdwa.org. And the deadline to request a ballot is January 31st at 1:00 p.m. Ballots must be received back by February 21st at 4. And your participation means a lot to us. So I hope you will request a ballot. Please let us hear your voice in this coming election. And thanks so much for being here. Tova, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. That was very helpful. Yes, please do consider yourselves, if you're a eligible voter in our district, you're eligible to vote in our district election. So definitely consider the option to request a ballot and get it back to us for this particular board position. All right, so I'm going to jump into some of the work that we've been doing. But first, as I mentioned, I do want to just describe to you what our district area covers. It's a very, very large area, including all of Skamania County, which happens to include Mount St. Helens, and then Western Klickitat County. So the eastern border is the Klickitat River. The western border is the Clark County line there. We tend to focus our work down in the private lands areas that are usually along the rivers, along the Columbia River especially, and where you see those towns and communities highlighted. So we can work on public lands, on the national forest or state lands as well, but it tends to not be our primary focus. We really focus on working with the folks that own land and need assistance with managing their lands. This is just a quick overview of, it's kind of a laundry list really of all the different types of work that we have done and can do. You'll see, you know, it covers a huge wide range of natural resource issues, and that's what that RCW 8908 describes for conservation districts. Any renewable natural resource concern that is pertinent and relevant for our area can be within our scope of work. So there's a lot of potential with the work that we can do. We are also grant funded. So besides, we are a government agency, but we get very few kind of stable grants from the state. And so really we have to go out and find our own grants to pursue the work that we do. I'll mention too that while we're a government agency, we're one of the few that's non-regulatory. So unlike the county or DNR or Department of Ecology, who has to enforce different regulations and rules as part of their work, we are non-regulatory, and intentionally so that we can work with landowners on a voluntary basis. So in starting a review of our past year, this was our last year's suite of winter workshops. So we offered the 4 that you see on that poster last year, and like I mentioned already, we recorded those and they're available for review, and you can see them there on our website. So please help yourself and share the word with friends and neighbors about these workshops that are recorded. We try to cover really pertinent topics, of course, topics that are going to be interesting and relevant to land ownership here in the Columbia Gorge. So definitely take a look at our website and share these with others. One of our biggest events of the year is the plant sale. Jan Thomas here tonight is primarily in charge of the plant sale, and she does a bang up job, and we've been growing and growing, and especially over the pandemic the last couple of years, the sales have been through the roof and more than we've ever really had to deal with. So that's been really interesting for us to learn how to grow and expand and manage the demand here with our native plant sale. But it's a really fun event for us. We do hold Tree Fest as our in-person event for that now. And we've been able to return to that in the last year. And so that was a great success to be able to go back to the in-person Tree Fest last year. And that's a big celebration really around native plants. And we'll have partners there in March when we hold it again. And like I said, that's going to be coming up March 18th in 2023. And so plan to come to that. It's right outside our office here in White Salmon, and we'll have a lot of different activities and native plants available for sale still. And if you've pre-ordered, you're welcome to come and pick up your order. In fact, you have to come and get your order on March 18th. So we'll look forward to seeing folks there, but we're really thankful for the support and the volunteers and board support we have for this event. Couldn't do it without volunteer help. So we are excited to just know that every year nearly 20,000 native plant stems are going out into the region here and getting planted in the ground. So that's a really exciting, huge success for us right there. Just over the course of the pandemic, we thought about how we could help folks who are sitting at home during the lockdown and such. And we developed a brand new program called Yard by Yard. We were inspired by Columbia Land Trust Backyard Habitat Program that's over in the Portland metro area. And also we named our program Yard by Yard after one that exists down in Oklahoma City. So we learned about their program, and there's other models out there, of course, but we developed this for this area where it's really a self-paced checklist that you can work yourself through. You can choose which areas are of interest and which areas are realistic for you to address, whether it's water conservation, native plants, maybe it's pollinator habitat or wildlife. There's a lot of different areas that you can focus on for your own particular yard and then get certified. And we're happy to conduct an on-site visit and help walk through the process with you, either during your checklist, beginning of the process, or after you've already implemented some of the practices. And then we can actually do the certification, and you get a lovely yard sign, just like the one you see here, to put in your yard if you choose. And that's how we can help get the word out to your neighbors and the whole community. So that was a great success for us to have the Yard by Yard program develop during the pandemic and remain available for folks who have that interest. There's something for everybody though. Depending on your backyard, this checklist has all kinds of ideas for you to chew on and work through. Let's see. This is a list of our farmland resources. And so with folks with farmland, we can provide technical assistance. A lot of that can happen on site or just over the phone and through email. We can provide advice and guidance for working through regulations, whatever the case may be. Any other concerns you may have, whether it's livestock, water quality, water conservation and irrigation efficiencies, maybe it's soil health and soil testing. So we can provide that technical assistance. We can advise on best management practices. And then one of our biggest successes recently is our farm tool library. It just opened in the spring of 2022. So we're really excited about that. And it's exciting for us. It's an actual tool shed with real tools in it. There's over 100 tools located here in the shed in White Salmon, and folks can sign up to become a member. And once you're a member, you can borrow tools basically for ongoing through the 3 seasons, spring, summer, and fall. And we have a variety of different tools. And really quick, I just want to put up the website for this so that it seems familiar to you. You can find this through our website, of course. And this is the first opening page of the farm tool library when you look at it, and it'll walk you through how to create a membership, how to reserve your tool, when to pick up your tools. etc. And there's actually 4 different types of memberships. You can choose to do 3 tools per year. You can have unlimited use, or you can rent our larger implements, which include a no-till drill and a manure spreader. And most recently, we have a yeoman's plow to add to that. We've just been funded to probably add a spader to that larger implement inventory. So we're excited about adding to the inventory overall. And then, of course, if it's a hardship at all to participate and be a member, we have scholarship memberships. So we don't want anybody to feel like they can't participate and gain access to these tools. When you click over here on the inventory page, you'll see all the tools that we have available: the no-till drill, broad forks, water tanks, the manure spreader. And you can also select a category. If you just want forestry tools, it'll show all the different forestry tools that we have: pole saws, fire rakes, for the biochar burn pile you may be doing, mattocks and pulaskis and picaroons, all kinds of forestry tools. So just get on the website when you can someday and browse around and see what you can find and what might be pertinent to you or your community, and see if there's something there for you. And we're excited to launch it again here this spring and make it available to folks for a whole nother year. So we were really excited to make that available here in 2022, and looking forward to a big future for the Farm Tool Library. All right, these are just some shots of when we opened the Farm Tool Library back in April of 2022. We had a grand opening event that included a ribbon cutting with our board members and community members there. And it is located right in White Salmon at the Mountain View Grange, if you know where that is. So get a hold of us if you have questions or interest about this and want to talk through any of the details of how this works. All right, another series of events, kind of partnering with the winter workshops in the wintertime, is we have crop talks in the summertime. And so this is a partnership with the Gorge Grown Food Network. And you can see the lineup that we had in 2022. It included a lot of great farms, both on the Oregon and Washington side. Usually we split about half and half so that we have equal numbers in both states. And it's a really great way for farmers to get together and network and share ideas and resources, but also for the public to get to know their farmers. So it's really a valuable time for everybody involved, and the farmers love showing off their farms and their animals and the beautiful scenery around their farms. So stay tuned. We're just getting the next year's lined up now, and we'll have that to announce soon for the next summer in 2023. All right. We also have a lot of forest land resources through UCD. And this past year, we continued a lot of that work where we basically have a Firewise program that is a little bit patchy just due to funding. Unfortunately, we haven't had really consistent funding to keep a robust program going always consistently. But our most consistent funding has been in Skamania County, where we are able to access Title III funding and keep the Firewise program going. We are most well known for the mobile chipper program that we offer primarily in Skamania County. And then just this last year, we were able to access some State Conservation Commission dollars and offer the same services in Klickitat County, or similar services at least. And we're looking forward to accessing more consistent funding to keep that program going. So we're able to provide home hazard assessments, and that's where we look around your home and analyze how safe is your home in the event of a wildfire, and how can we increase that safety or reduce the risk of a catastrophic loss in the event of wildfire. So we work with folks about how to increase defensible space, some common sense practical tips on what to do to remove fuels and reduce fuels. And this past year too, we were able to join efforts with DNR and a few other partners to kind of carry out their Wildfire Ready Neighbors campaign. So you might have gotten a flyer in the mail in some of the targeted communities, and they have their cost share program available through DNR. So that's an option for folks to get work done. But the Wildfire Ready Neighbors program was really designed around doing those home hazard evaluations. So you could sign up and get these evaluations done. And from what I hear, that will continue through 2023. So we look forward to, again, like I said, getting more consistent funding in so that we can support this effort throughout our communities in the wildland urban interface in our district. So wildfire is a real concern. That's exactly why we're holding that event, the film showing Elemental in February. So come out for that. You'll learn much more about wildfire and what the local resources are available to you. Okay, here's another topic that we've been focusing in on just in the last year. It's brand new to us. We got some grants from the Washington Department of Natural Resources Urban Forestry Program, as well as the Columbia Gorge Cooperative Weed Management Area, to conduct outreach and control treatments for the Tree of Heaven. You may or may not have heard of the Tree of Heaven, and if you haven't, I urge you to look up our webinar from last month, where we have it recorded on our website. We focused all in on the Tree of Heaven project. We have been doing a lot of different outreach, flyers, signage, just like the one you see on this slide, city council meetings, attending events, and going into classrooms. There's been a lot of different outreach events that we've been doing. We even created a film, a short film. It's, I think, just 2.5 minutes long or so. And I won't play it now because we played it in our last webinar, but you can look it up on our site or on YouTube and learn all about what Tree of Heaven is. It's an invasive tree. You can see a few of its traits here listed on the screen. And once you know what it looks like, you will see it everywhere throughout the gorge. It happens to be quite prolific. It grows very, very well throughout the gorge. And the problem with it is it's not only invasive and takes over native habitats and just goes bonkers, but it also hosts the spotted lanternfly, which is not yet here, but has posed major problems in the East Coast and the Midwest already. So it's a recent, also an invasive pest that's arrived just in the last 5 years or so. And we really do not want to welcome it here to the Pacific Northwest by having the Tree of Heaven, its preferred host, right here. So that's a little bit of a snippet of why we're controlling it, but I really invite you to check out our website, watch the video, watch our past webinar, and learn what you can about it. So we did some control treatments actually ourselves, and we worked with noxious weed departments from both Klickitat and Skamania County and the city of White Salmon and the city of Bingen to do these treatments. Our focus for these grants are in the cities of White Salmon and Bingen, and we worked with 26 private landowners and a bunch of public right-of-way areas as well. So we treated more than 1,500 trees just in a couple of months in, I think it was September and October of 2022. So we got a lot done, and unfortunately there's a lot more to do. So that's why we need to get the word out to folks and help folks identify the tree and know how to treat it. And the key here is really to make sure you know not to just cut the tree. Unfortunately, if you cut the tree, it usually resprouts in multiple stems and will shoot stems up from underground all over the place. That's its response. So we do end up using herbicide as a treatment. So we want folks to know what the right treatments are to use herbicide, not just cut it and promote regrowth. Also plant native species, promote non-invasive trees in your neighborhood. Talk to your neighbors. There's ways to survey for it and make sure you can report that you have a tree in your neighborhood. And then you can take action to control it, hopefully properly, or ask for help from ourselves or from the county noxious weed departments. There happens to be an invasive weeds and exotic and invasive species and exotic pest conference in Stevenson, also coming up in February on the 23rd. So that's open to the public and is also a really great place to learn more about all of the different invasive species that we're dealing with in the gorge. Excuse me. All right. So I am also just very proud to share that we are a resource to conservation districts statewide. So over the last year, Jan Thomas in our office has taken on a huge role for the state in co-chairing and coordinating training through the Washington State Center for Technical Development. This is the kind of the hub for all of the technical resources and training that can be compiled in one place for conservation districts across Washington State. And Jan is the key player in terms of compiling all of those resources and delivering those resources to conservation districts. So we're really proud to have her in our office and be able to house the CTD, so to speak, through our district. And it's a huge resource, like I said, to the entire state. So that's a huge role for us as little UCD down here in South Central Washington to do for all of Washington State. Similarly, we're providing engineering support through our engineer, Carly Lemon, who she doesn't only engineer projects for us, but she's working for other regional conservation districts, providing engineering support for a multitude of different types of projects, from livestock manure management structures to irrigation screens and outtake diversion systems to fish passage projects and culvert replacements. So she's got a huge repertoire of work that she's already building early in her career, and we're really thrilled to have her also located right here with us and available for that. Okay, if I can keep talking without coughing too much. I have some exciting projects to share. This one that you see in front of you is the Pearson Bank Stabilization Project. It took place up in Trout Lake. And as I was just mentioning, Carly, she was the engineer for this project. Of course, there were multiple steps. This was years in the making in terms of planning, garnering the appropriate funding that we needed for this, and going through the design process, the engineering review, and then permitting. I can't tell you how much has to go into permitting for these types of projects, especially on a stream. We went through that, and then of course, a public works contracting process. So we had a great contractor here in 2022, and the in-water work window that we're limited to working in limits us usually to working in August and September, when the water is low and usually when the fish aren't actively spawning right there in the stream. So you can see we de-watered the area of work along the stream bank, and then we placed these large root balls and logs along with some boulders for ballast. And those were placed as basically habitat features along the edge of the slope, along the bank, to provide habitat, cover, refuge, and shade for aquatic life. And then those got buried. And so the final product looked similar to this photo at the bottom right. Those root balls are just sticking out at the toe of the slope now. They're mostly buried, and we planted this slope. So from a nearly vertical eroding bank, we now have this stabilized slope, and the idea was to stabilize it to prevent erosion and protect water quality in Trout Lake Creek and enhance the fish habitat, but also protect the farmland that's adjacent here. So we worked with the Pearson family, and this is a really, gosh, I want to say they're fourth generation, if not fifth generation farmers in Trout Lake, and preserving this farmland and keeping it as open working lands is really important to maintaining the agricultural quality of life there in Trout Lake. So this was a big project for us, and we were super excited to finally get to the point of construction in September of 2022. And like I said, we planted in November. So it'll recover and grow back, and years from now, nobody will know this was a man-made stream bank. Our other big construction project in 2022 was this Western Pond Turtle Habitat Project, located just west of Lisle. And this was a really unique project for us, kind of the first time we had focused in on Western Pond Turtle habitat. And so we had the opportunity to work with a private landowner and also with partners at WDFW and US Fish and Wildlife Service. And again, Carly was the engineer for this, and she designed the ponds that we ended up constructing. And we were able to put together some funding for this. Again, we had to jump through a lot of permitting hoops, including the scenic area for this one. So there was a good planning process involved, and then we finally went to construction in October of 2022. And this is, these are a couple of views of one of the ponds that was constructed. And of course, it's looking pretty bare still soon after construction, but we have now planted this and seeded it heavily. And we're hopeful that the vegetation will take hold and really establish some great pond turtle habitat, not only for turtles, but for all types of amphibians and waterfowl and other wildlife that depend on water. So we're really excited where, previously this was just a ditched farm field and a hay field that really had very little value and use for the landowner. And so we were excited to be able to reintroduce some ponds to this area. And I didn't mention that Western pond turtles are listed in Washington state as an endangered species. So it's a really important type of habitat that we've lost over the years as farm fields have been ditched and dewatered to put into production. And so we're helping reestablish some of their habitat. This happens to be adjacent to state lands where they have also protected pond turtle habitat right next door. So we're excited that the location of this particular project happened to coincide really well with other local priorities for the Western pond turtle.
Tova, just a second. Thomas, did you have a quick
Yes,
question?
I was wondering if you're planning on planting cattails around the periphery of the pond. I think it would really make it more attractive. I live just across the street, so it's a little barren.
Yeah, no, you're right. After construction, it always is a little barren in the beginning, and we have filled this area with willows and cottonwoods and ash trees and Oregon white oak and some maples. There's quite a huge variety of different trees and shrubs that we've put in on the banks of these ponds now. And cattails were not on our list. I'll have to check on that, whether that's one that we want to introduce or not. But yeah, we have definitely wanted to fill in the bare soil as best we can, especially it'll prevent the onset of noxious weeds. So we're hoping that our seed and our vegetation that's planted now will take hold, but we'll monitor and make sure. But I'll follow up on that just to see if cattails will be something that might be desirable for that habitat.
Thank you.
Okay. Another project that I wanted to highlight, and I don't have a ton of great photos, unfortunately, but up in the upper portion of Rattlesnake Creek, which is a tributary to the White Salmon River, it's quite arid, and the timber harvesting and land use history of that area also ended up with ditching a lot of the streams and channelizing a lot of the historic streams and wetlands that existed up there. So what used to be kind of a sponge and had a lot of holding capacity for water up in the headwaters of Rattlesnake Creek, they've been ditched, and now those streams drain their water really quickly after the winter time. And so they don't hold as much water, and therefore streams like Rattlesnake Creek are very flow limited. They end up with very low flows in the summer and very high stream temperatures in the summer. where we have steelhead and salmon recolonizing, trying to recolonize. So in an effort to restore the hydrology and restore fish habitat downstream, we're working in these upstream headwaters areas to restore the hydrology and help increase the storage of water for longer release into the summer. So all that to say, we're mimicking beaver habitat, and these are called beaver dam analogs. The picture on the lower right is a beaver dam analog that we constructed. We constructed about 22 of them in Upper Rattlesnake Creek with a crew from the Mount Adams Resource Stewards. And again, Carly was our designer for this project, and it was implemented really well, really smoothly with the hand crew. And what we do is basically drive these vertical posts into the ground. And then we weave different branches and usually live willow stakes into the base of those posts. And that creates kind of a porous dam that mimics what beavers can do on the landscape. And I am gonna just play this video for you. It's a fun video that illustrates what beavers can do on the landscape. And we are working with our partners to help improve the beaver habitat and really the beaver population as well in desirable places. We recognize that beavers can be a nuisance species in certain areas for sure, but where they can be managed or even relocated to even more beneficial locations, we're trying to bring those resources to landowners to be able to work with beavers. So I'll play this just for fun. Okay, well, that's just for fun because it really illustrates well, I think, how beavers can interact with the landscape and restore hydrology, improve vegetation in a watershed, and make it even more resilient to wildfire. So there's a lot of benefits to what beavers can do, and that kind of habitat in terms of having more moist soils and more vegetation greener throughout the year. So like I said, we are happy to work with landowners to really bring resources and help people understand how they can manage beavers on the landscape, but also, if necessary, relocate them without having to legally remove them. This one was not done in the last year, this project, but we did have a really amazing project on the Little Wind River over in Skamania County a couple of years ago, and we're still very proud of it. And I won't play the film for you here because it's, I don't want to drag on too long, but there is about an 8-minute film that we had made about our project on the Little Wind River. It's located on our website, or you can search for it through YouTube. But this was a really exciting project because it was kind of a capstone to some other work we'd already done in the Little Wind to restore fish habitat. But this particular phase included helicopters, and helicopters helped us actually place the wood in the stream. So it was really exciting. It was an area where we had very little access, and we didn't want to damage the stream with big yellow excavators going out and you know, trying to place wood. So instead it was an air delivery of large wood, and it was really exciting for us to be able to bring that project to fruition. So I invite you to go find this film as well and have fun watching that. I had mentioned or had on a slide earlier that fish passage is some of the work that we do. And this is something that not everybody quite understands what it's about. So fish passage is when we restore passage for fish and other aquatic life through streams, and it's usually involving a culvert. Sometimes it's involving a dam, even an irrigation diversion dam, but oftentimes it's a road culvert. So these can be privately owned road culverts or public county roads or state roads that have these fish passage barriers on them. And so this video I will play just for fun because it's short, but it illustrates really clearly what this project did. Particularly this one was on Mill Creek, a tributary to the White Salmon River. And after Condit Dam was removed in 2011 and 12, really UCD was a leader in the watershed opening up the tributaries to the White Salmon River. So while the Condit Dam was a really big event for the entire region, really, and for the watershed, the tributaries, some of them still had barriers on them. So we got to take a lead role in removing some of those barriers, and one of them was this project on Mill Creek. All right. So even though that didn't happen in the last year, I'm too proud to not show it off. So with that, that was a pretty brief roundup. I mean, it was really just the highlights of some of our biggest events over the past year and a little more than a year. And I did want to turn our attention to the future and make sure that, we've got this great long-range planning process that is just finishing up. And we had a community survey. Many of you participated in that. And thank you for doing that. And then it's really helping us shape our vision for going forward and how we can respond best to the needs in the future. So I'm going to turn it over to Jan here, who's going to explain just briefly some of the community survey results that we had just over the last 6 months or so.
Yeah, thank you, Tova. I just want to go through kind of the high level here with you and just let you know kind of who we saw responding and what the kind of main themes for each of the categories were. So as Barbara said, this online survey approach really got us a wide variety of respondents and a big number of respondents, more than we've been able to gather with some of the in-person community meetings and in previous long-range planning efforts. So we did have 239 total respondents. About half of those were from the portion of our district that's Western Klickitat County, another 33% out of Skamania County, and then a contingent of folks that don't live here, but they do own property in the district. So, and then 2 mystery respondents who don't live here and don't visit here. So I'm not sure who those folks were, but yeah. So that was kind of the folks that live and own property. For owning property, we had small rural landowners and large rural landowners, and we made that cutoff at 20 acres. So the small rural landowners, about just under half of them, the people that responded to this own 20 acres or less in the district, about 20% owning 20 acres or more, and then about another 20% who are kind of focused in the urban areas. So White Salmon, Bingen, Stevenson, Carson, those areas, and then a few renters and maybe some just visitors there too. So that's who responded to our survey. And like I said, we're happy to see so many respondents. We asked some questions based on kind of what the different resources were and what people had an option to answer or not answer questions about these different categories. So these were the categories that we had a multiple choice on: forest land, farmland, watershed health, streams and rivers, and then urban and suburban conservation. By far, we had the most interest in the forest land and the watershed and streams categories, but also some results for farmland and urban and suburban. And then I've also just listed there some of the write-in topics. So there was an open comment option, and wildfire safety and risk mitigation, definitely, invasive species and noxious weeds, soil health, habitat, and then also just some of those human aspects for housing and community well-being, those things. So that is kind of the main topics we offered up to people. And then I'm just going to briefly touch on each of those 4 and let you know kind of what the big themes there were. So for forest land, we had 90% of the folks that filled out the survey did answer forest land questions. So definitely a lot of interest in that category. And you'll see this theme running through most of these different topics here, but definitely the 2 main concerns in the forest-related natural resource areas were forest health, including drought, pests, and disease, and then also wildfire risk. Kind of followed up by wildlife habitat and then climate change, and then also some stuff related to timber harvest and timber productivity. Invasive species was also mentioned just in a kind of a write-in, and then some biodiversity and recreation concerns. Of course, we have a lot of recreation here in the gorge. So that was forest. For farmland, we had just under half of the people answered the farmland questions. So not as many there, but we did have some of the theme you'll see here in through these all. So the 2 kind of well, actually, it's kind of 3 around the 40% marks: pollinator habitat, invasive pests and weeds again. And then the next 2 were more of, again, that human aspect with farm viability and then farmland succession, easements, open space preservation, and those things. We also had write-in about wildlife, both with the damage that wildlife can cause and also in protecting wildlife habitat. And then also some concerns around navigating regulations, and primarily those concerns were addressed towards kind of water regulations and working with Department of Ecology and those regulators. Watershed health was one of those other topics that most people did answer the questions on, about 80% here. That was our other largest topic. And there again, we have fish and wildlife habitat and surface water quality and stream flow. So those kind of go together and were our top concerns, followed up by water quality and wildfire risk and vegetation loss. We also had groundwater, noxious weeds, and that habitat preservation. You can see there. Final category was that urban and suburban, and we had about half of the folks answer the questions related to this. And see kind of the themes there again, with the water quality and quantity coming in right around the same. Wildfire risk, very large concern for this group as well, with the houses and our close forests. And then again with pollinator habitat and fish and wildlife habitat, and then those invasive species. And then I think, yeah, so then we finished up our survey with kind of this community education center dream that we have. And I think Tova's going to talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, we got some good support there in our survey from that. So Tova, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thanks, Jan. Yeah, I'm going to segue into this topic a bit, where really UCD is delving into the dream of having its own building and facility and property someday. Right now, you know, we're located right in the town of White Salmon, and it's very accessible, and we like that location for sure. But someday it would be wonderful to have space to really demonstrate the best management practices and the conservation stewardship that we promote. So this is something that we've developed or just started to really dig into. And we started with this survey, you know, to gain some feedback. And it sounds like there's a lot of positivity around that possibility. So, you know, these are just kind of mock-ups and typical drawings. We haven't done anything specific to any particular property in terms of planning a facility quite yet, but this just outlines some of our objectives here, that we would love to be able to provide conservation demonstrations and education opportunities to residents and landowners, of course, the general public and youth. We'd like to have a base of operations for our programming, including our equipment and our supplies, such as our farm tool library. And we'd like to facilitate and coordinate efforts to help resolve complex challenges in the Columbia River Gorge. So we have some real complex natural resource challenges, including wildfire and water and some other critical issues that we could use a physical space to actually be able to meet and bring stakeholders together and facilitate some of the discussions that need to happen over that. This just kind of sketches out some possibilities for the property. 2 or more acres would be wonderful. Ideally, the land could have a structure on it already with covered storage space. And of course, any kind of donated or charitable price for long-term lease is possible. We'll be looking for funding wherever we can to start developing our own capacity around this possibility. But that gives you just an idea of what we're looking for. This space, again, would have convening space, both indoor and outdoor settings, to bring stakeholders and the public together to learn and discuss and grapple with some of the hard issues we've got ahead of us. We want to have educational displays. We want to hold workshops and events and trainings. As much as we can, depending on the property, we'd love to have kind of a working demonstration, again, of whether those are orchard practices, a native plant nursery, or forestry practices, maybe farming and ranching practices. So there's a lot of different possibilities that could take shape in, and we're excited for all of those. We are partnering with the Rowena Wildlife Clinic, and they're also looking for space in Washington State for their wildlife rehabilitation clinic. So that's a really natural partnership in a lot of ways, where we promote native vegetation and habitat, and they are supporting wildlife. So we're working together on finding the right location for this. There are a lot of different ways that this can take shape, but you can just see here on the slide all the ideas that we have. The sky's the limit. This is the flyer that we put together with Rowena Wildlife Clinic, and you might have seen it hung around town here and there, but we are looking, again, like I said, together for property that could house both our operations and the Rowena Wildlife Clinic's operations. So keep a lookout. Let us know if you've got ideas. Of course, we're looking for funding, grants, and loans and things that will support such an effort as well. But we're happy to discuss this idea with anybody who's interested. All right. In other parts of our long-range plan, it's still draft. We've had a series of meetings and a lot of great input from the community, but now we're formulating all of that information into a long-range plan. So these are just some of the draft goals that we've developed in our recent meetings at the board and staff levels. So we definitely want to continue our education workshops and trainings. And that includes landowner assistance and coming out on site to folks' properties and discussing their concerns. It includes crop talks in this winter workshop series. It includes the Center for Technical Development that I mentioned that we provide statewide in Washington. And of course, Tree Fest and all of the other materials that we do, that we provide. And we've been just recently expanding some of our outreach and information in Spanish. So we're really probably very late to the game on that, but finally getting some of that into Spanish for folks. In the forestry and firewise realm, we definitely want and need to continue our landowner assistance. We have a reforestation pilot project that we want to launch to really help folks reforest open lands that are not productive and viable as agricultural working lands. We want to build out this Firewise program that I've talked about, where the home hazard assessments, the chipping, the various incentives to increase defensible space, we really want to build the funding to be able to make that consistent and available across the entire district. And again, we want to build our forestry technical assistance in terms of being able to provide forest management planning, stewardship management planning for forest lands. And that's an in-house capacity that we're working to build. In agricultural and working lands, you heard me mention the tool library. We're going to continue to grow that. We're going to continue offering landowner assistance in various ways. And land conservation is a topic that we're starting to dip our toes into a little bit more. Especially with exploring easement options and just in terms of how we can support and facilitate those options for landowners. So we may not be the ones that hold the easements or that need to be the long-term landowners in these situations necessarily, but there are resources out there that we want to help connect people with to be able to do that. In other topics, there's the urban habitat realm, and that is to include our yard by yard program. And the cities need a lot of support with some of their issues with whether it's a noxious tree like Tree of Heaven, or maybe it's water and water conservation. So there's a lot of different issues that we're ready to work with the cities on. Water quality continues to be a priority for us, and we're happy to work with folks with their livestock manure management or with irrigation improvements. And all types of other BMPs that relate to water quality. Weeds and native plants will continue to be a focus for us for sure with our native plant sale. Our Tree of Heaven support will definitely be supporting the cities and landowners with controlling Tree of Heaven. And we do conduct some noxious weed projects further out, in the Wind River watershed. We will continue to support noxious weed removal. You heard a lot about our in-stream habitat and passage projects tonight, and we'll continue to develop those projects and work with landowners where we can to meet the needs, whatever they are, whether it's a fish passage project or a beaver dam analog opportunity or wetland or pond restoration. So there's a lot of different opportunities, and every property really poses a different opportunity to us. Of course, to be able to do all of this, we have to have the capacity. And so we'll continue to grow financially as best we can, searching out the right grant funds that fit our needs. We really need and are so thankful for the stable board that we've had over the last several years. We want to maintain the board that we have and continue to grow it. And then we're going to also put on a lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and really make sure that we are communicating and reaching out to underserved communities and making sure that they know what our resources are and how we can help. This conservation center that I talked about, the Community Conservation Center, is a big one that we're going to be working on trying to find funding for and develop a real plan to start that planning process and really help it come to fruition. Of course, increased staff capacity and increased financial stability and security for the organization. There's a lot to that, and can't go into every detail, but that's a huge goal of ours to continue to grow and increase capacity. So with that, I will wrap it up and just ask if there's any questions out there, ideas or discussion points that anyone in the audience wants to share.
Tova, Tom Lumpkin again.
Yeah.
Is there any long-term planning on conservation, or I mean, on climate change, on how the gorge is anticipated to change and to get out in front of that, maybe with pre-planting of species, you know, for what the conditions will be 10 years or 20 years from now, and, you know, anticipation of increased fires and events like we're having right now with these atmospheric rivers.
Yeah, no, those are really good ideas and thoughts. We've been talking about how we can address climate change locally. And of course, it's a tough nut to crack, but we're happy to report that, yes, it's on our work plan. We have a lot of different ways we want to continue to support folks to become more resilient to climate change. As I mentioned, you know, just restoring headwaters to streams so that water can last longer in the streams and be more available throughout the drier times of the year. That's something we've already been doing, but we'll continue to emphasize in our work. And preparing folks for wildfire, you know, that's a real issue that is certainly being exacerbated by climate change. And then, as you mentioned, with native plants, yeah, we are definitely looking at our species in our native plant sale and with our restoration projects in terms of what species are going to be more drought tolerant and resistant to climate change, or at least resilient and able to survive. So that's something, it's not a fine-tuned science, frankly. It's a little bit of a guessing game, but we're definitely able to look at what species are more drought hardy and resilient and focus on those. So yeah, there's a lot going on in terms of the climate change world, how we can adapt and what we're doing to help even store carbon locally. The biochar workshop is going to be a good one for that, and soil health, anything that we can do to help folks conserve their soil and build their soil and build the quality of their soil, help store carbon in the soil. And yeah, even the farm tool library is one step in the right direction in my mind, because we're not only providing tools to actually conserve resources like soil and water, but it's basically a model to reuse and share tools instead of everybody going out and buying their own tools and increasing the resources that we're demanding from the world. We're sharing those tools. So anyway, that's a long answer to say that yes, climate change is very much on our radar and threads itself through a lot of the different programs and projects that we're doing.
Thank you.
Anything else with a question or a thought that's popped up through this evening? I'm curious, Josh, your comment about the great concept. I didn't see when that came in. What was that related to?
that's around your partnership with Rowena and your conservation center.
Okay.
I know like what is already like playing out over in Spokane with that conservation district that has taken on a property and put in conservation practices that they're able to showcase to their community. It's such a great concept. That's what I was commenting on.
Okay, nice. Yeah, thanks. Well, don't need to hold everybody too late. Any other pressing questions or feedback even from our presentation tonight? We do have one more poll, so don't run off. We do want to make sure to catch people, and we can go ahead and launch that and see if you've learned anything tonight.
Just launched that poll, and I wanted to just tell folks that I was putting links in the chat, you know, as we went through the presentations. But if you ever have any questions on any of those things or need to know where to find it, just shout out and we can get you those links or get you more information on some of the projects that Tova described and the work that we're doing. So don't be shy to reach out if you need some more information on something. And hopefully those elemental film showing tickets will be up on the theater website in the next day or two. So don't miss that. And we'll link to it from our website as well, to the place where you can get tickets and get all the information that's coming.
While folks finish this poll up, I'm also just going to put the next slide up and make sure everyone knows how to reach us. You were able to find us here tonight, so you probably have this already, but reach out to us if you want to talk about your own particular project or ideas or any concerns you have with natural resources in the gorge.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks.
I think we have most folks have answered here, Tova, so and close that out.
What's it look like, Jan?
Oh, good results. I'll share
Pass
them
the
here.
test.
So, everyone learned something new about UCD tonight, so that's great. Everyone got it correct that we are a non-regulatory government
that's awesome.
agency.
Good job. Good job.
Very good to hear. Yeah, and then some folks ready to contact UCD, some folks that going to refer friends and neighbors. And so, yeah, good night, sounds like. So thank you all for being here.
Yeah, thank you. If, of course, you've heard it, if you have follow-up questions and would like to discuss our services further, please feel free to reach out to us. That's what we're here for. Again, we appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you'll share what you learned here with others. And with that, thank you for joining us this evening, and we hope to see you all soon. Stay well and good night.